Hey guys, let's talk about how much structure you should use for your goal setting. If you're not feeling motivated by your goals, it could be that you actually have too much structure. Goals serve two purposes, and think about this with me. So, a goal, why even set goals? One is so that you don't wander. So there's a clear, like, I'm heading for this point in the future, this outcome, and it's going to require that I think about, okay, well, if that's the goal, then working backwards, what do I have to do to get there? Because it's not just the short-term thing where I can just do it today and then all the various sequences and pieces will fall into place and I can hold them all in my working memory. When you're working on big goals, you can't do that well, right? So that's one purpose of a goal, is to prevent us from wandering around from one thing to the next, to essentially organize and focus our energy and our efforts toward accomplishing something meaningful. That's purpose number one for goal. And the second purpose for a goal is to motivate you, right? So if you're finding that you're doing great with that first part, is you're not wandering now, you've overcome that hurdle, but now you feel like your motivation starts to lag and you start thinking, maybe this sort of structured goal setting is not for me. Maybe I'm broken. Whatever it is that you're thinking, maybe it's because you feel like a little bit less motivated than you used to when you were just flying by the seat of your pants and you're trying to figure out what to do next from one day to the next. And so let's think about, how can you use structured goals? If that's the problem, is that when you use structured goals, sometimes you start to lose motivation, then what's the solution? The solution is not to abandon your goals. You need some sort of structured system. The solution is to increase the frequency with which you look at your long-term goals and you tie them back to your immediate short-term goals. Usually that works best if you think, okay, here's my long-term goal out here in the future, maybe 6 months, 1 year, maybe 3 years away. Here's my midterm goal, that these are milestones that will get us there. And then here's the immediate task list on my plate for today or this week that I need to work on. And what you want to do is make that connection psychologically so that you get excited about these goals and you start thinking of these not as process goals, even though they are, but you start thinking of them as, these are the things. If I can accomplish these things, I will accomplish my big goal. And that's not really true, right? Because it's just one piece of it. But you kind of have to fool your brain into thinking of it that way. Just like when I used to help people to quit smoking and get off nicotine, there was this tendency for people to say, well, just one more cigarette, like I'll just smoke today and tomorrow, and then like it'll be easier on Saturday, I'll stop. And it's this mentality of just one more cigarette that often caused people to fail. They think, well, I've had a rough day, I'm out here, this one cigarette's not going to kill me, so I'll just have this one cigarette. And then next thing we know, we're kind of starting over, like, okay, well, let's try to build this period of abstinence that's required. A certain number of days has to pass before the brain can start to overcome the physical tolerance to the drugs in the cigarettes. And so we have to switch that. And the way I was able to get success with my patients working in the clinical setting with people on that kind of substance addiction is to shift their mind to say, this next cigarette is the one that's going to kill me. This is the one that's going to determine whether I can walk my daughter down the aisle and be present at her wedding, or if instead I will be in the hospital confined there dying of lung cancer. And if I could get them to think of the next cigarette as the one that was going to determine, then they want nothing to do with that cigarette, right? If you can start to, and the problem is it's not actually true, right? It's not the next cigarette. It's the months and years of cigarette smoking that leads to lung cancer, not one cigarette. But we have to fool the brain into thinking of it that way in order to get the motivation and the traction. So in the same way, I'm asking you with your goals to think of it that way. Tie it from long-term goal back to what's on your plate right now, and think, these goals, like if I don't do them, I'm going to wander into mediocrity. If I can accomplish these, it's going to achieve this outcome I care about. And suddenly the dopamine systems of your brain start to kick in and work in your favor. You start feeling motivated because now there's something you want and you believe you can get it. And that unleashes dopamine, which is one of the primary factors that's going to determine how motivated you feel. One other piece before we wrap up this weekly challenge is just to think, sometimes what you need to do if you're looking at your goals and none of them feel that motivating is to try to find one piece that's just far enough out and just close enough to where you can almost taste it. Like the finish line is close enough, but it's a significant enough thing that you'd be kind of excited if you could achieve that, and start focusing on that more. So you zoom out, you look at your big goals, you stay on track because you've zoomed out and you're seeing like the big picture, but then zoom in a little bit after you've done that. So you know you're on track, you know you've got the right task list in front of you, the right things to focus on. Find something as you zoom in, even if it's a little bit asymmetrical in terms of how much you focus on that one thing relative to how important it is for your big goals. try to find something you can zoom in on that's just close enough to where you can almost taste it, because that's what unlocks our dopamine the most. We are time creatures. Like we think that the impact of rewards and punishment that are close in time have a far greater impact on us than things that are further out in time. So if you can find something that's a little bit closer and think to yourself, like, that would be awesome, and imagine achieving it, and then believe you can achieve it, and then think, I have the power to achieve this, and then start thinking of it that way. That's another thing that will help to unlock that just natural dopamine sort of drive you're looking for as you try to pair these two aspects of goal setting together: the structure that keeps you from wandering and the motivation to keep you driving forward. So your challenge this week is to notice anytime your motivation starts lagging and ask yourself, do I need to just zero in on one thing? Have I zoomed out to make sure I'm moving in the right direction? And what can I zoom in on? And how can I connect it to that idea that it's this stuff is going to make the difference between success and failure, and sort of trick myself into using that strategy, that aspect of how our neurology is designed to be able to get the best out of yourself for peak performance. I'll talk to you soon.